Hello, BookTube. I thought we'd go through my mail. I got a little mail, some book packages, of course, but also the London Review of Books, one of the great book review organs of the Western world. I thought we'd take a quick stroll through that, since it is its table of contents is free of writers I hate, so it's perfectly okay for us to take a stroll. The first review is by Francis Gooding, and it's of Tim Flannery's book, which in the UK was called Europe, the First 100 Million Years. When it was published in America, it had a different title to remove the number, because Americans are notoriously stupid. But I thought the book was a little on the light side. I had a tremendous amount of fun with Tim Flannery's last sweeping archaeological natural history, but this one it didn't really do it for me. I'm going to read it again when I get the paperback and see if maybe I was just having a bad afternoon or whatnot. Then the next review, a very long, very detailed review, is David Runciman reviewing Charles Moore's new biography of Margaret Thatcher, the third volume in his authorized biography of Margaret Thatcher. It's a long and loving review. But I liked it a lot. The main problem that I have with it is that most of the loving part was directed not at the book but at Thatcher. About at the halfway point, Runciman starts just exculpating Margaret Thatcher, including on grounds that you cannot exculpate her on. You cannot soften some of the social aspects of her reign of power. You can't do it. We weren't meant to do it. Thatcher wouldn't have wanted you to do it, and he tries it anyway in light of modern 21st century politics. I'm glad to have it because I thought the book was tremendously impressive, and I reviewed it, and I used to keep a filing cabinet. Those of you who are very young can Google that term, filing cabinet. They were huge metal things with drawers on rollers. Full of documents, clipped essays, clipped book reviews, all that sort of thing. Sometimes whole reviews just stuck in there. And then I got rid of my filing cabinet, and I reduced it to 2 long boxes of documents, of that kind of document. And then I realized that the way I wanted to keep, I didn't want, first of all, to keep book reviews of books that I don't have, since that doesn't make any sense at all to do. Instead, what I want to do, there's a lot, I'm a fan of my own profession, of course. There's a lot of erudition, a lot of wit that goes into a good book review. I'm not disparaging that. But I had way too many of them. So eventually those 2 long boxes became a little container. And then just recently, just a few years ago, the little container became a stack of folded book reviews that I pulled out of the reviews themselves and folded and put in a little stack. And then I went through the stack and just found homes for all of those reviews. The place that I want to keep book reviews, old book reviews, I realized that I never consulted that filing cabinet. I never consulted those long boxes. I never even consulted that little container. I never consulted these things because they were never where I wanted them to be. I realized that the place where I like to consult book reviews and where I invariably like to find them in used bookstores is inside a pertinent book, usually the book being reviewed. So now that's my religious practice. I save just as many book reviews as I ever did, but I find homes for them. I put them in books. And this one, my volume of the Margaret Thatcher is full of the reviews that it's been getting. So I will add that to it. Runciman is probably the most politically distinguished of the people writing those reviews, and I have lots of underlining. You don't need to retroactively validate Margaret Thatcher's policies to write a sympathetic or even glowing review of a biography of Margaret Thatcher. You don't need to do it. And the next one is Michael Wood writing about something called Romantic Shades and Shadows, which I don't have. Then Emily Witt writing about a new book on mescaline, which I don't have and never read. But there's a nice, wonderful piece by Charles Hope here called A Piece of Christ. It's about, it's a roundup of new books on Leonardo da Vinci. I briefly thought about doing exactly that kind of roundup myself for the anniversary. 2019 was an anniversary for Leonardo da Vinci, and I thought That'd be a great idea for a roundup. That'd be a great thing to do, and for the Christian Science Monitor here in Boston. And it didn't go through for the simplest and dumbest reason imaginable. That every once in a while does actually happen. The publishers in question did not send books. And some of them were quite expensive. One of them was $500. So, the monitor's not going to buy that book on its own. So you want to, I mean, you might, on the one hand, you might say, well, $500 is a pretty high price tag to send to somebody for free. And I can counter that by saying, you're not sending it for free. You're sending it for a glowing, probably glowing review sent out to 85,000 people. $500 is a lot to ask for a book, so you need reviews like that. But apparently not, because I think I asked for 4 books and got 1. And quite a few of them are here. There's an exhibit at the Louvre. There's Leonardo Rediscovered by Carmen Baumbach. That's from Yale. That was, I think, hugely expensive. There's one here that I don't see. Martin Kemp did a Leonardo book that I don't see it listed here. Maybe the publisher didn't send it to them either. But the article's really good. It's all about Leonardo and why we venerate him, and a centerpiece discussion. The bulk of the article is discussing the Salvator Mundi. This thing. Those of you who are not up on the latest controversies in the art world might not know anything about it, but it's a painting that's been around forever. And only recently has it been contended to be by Leonardo da Vinci, not in his school, if there were one, not by assistants, not in the manner of, but by da Vinci himself. And as a result, it sold for some astronomical amount of money a few years ago to the richest man in the world, Mohammed bin Salman. And the speculation now is that it's in his possession, but no one knows for sure where it is. And this article is the latest. I mean, it is a review of all of these Leonardo books, but it's also the latest in what I imagine will be an endless debate about whether or not this thing actually is by Leonardo da Vinci, whether or not he actually did paint it. I myself think not. I have looked at the arguments for and against. There are a lot, and a lot of them get very technical, and the more technical the better, as far as I'm concerned. It's no small thing to be debating whether or not this is, the 11th Leonardo da Vinci painting that we know for sure, the 10th, something like that. It's a tiny number for such a Renaissance master. So if you're going to argue about it, you should get into the weeds. You should get specific on why you think this. I myself think that the arguments against win out. But I think it's fascinating either way, and obviously Mohammed bin Salman and his art procurers think otherwise, because they were willing to pay. I think it says $450 million. In 2017, $450 million was paid for this painting. But anyway, so I thought I'm always up for a Leonardo think piece of any kind. Then Rivka Galchen does a book reviews a book by Georgiana Ivanova from Columbia Press. I never got this book. It's called Unbinding the Pillow Book, The Many Lives of a Japanese Classic. And it's a really wonderful piece. It could have been a lot longer for my liking. It's a really wonderful piece on the pillow book of Sei Shonagon, which was written at the same time as the book of as the Tale of Genji, but is a completely different book. Completely. It's absolutely delightful. It's like no other classic that I know of in any culture of any time period. It's a collection of trivialities that was obviously written by a completely dithering airhead, and yet it is so charming. Then Adam Mars Jones, who's a very, very talented member of my profession, he reviews The Need by Helen Phillips, which I loved. That book has really stuck with me from 2019. All about motherhood in the abstract sense, but also has... it has an abstraction and an ability to be abstracted, but it's also, how do I want to put this? The more I think about it, the more I think that it is an almost note-perfect way to merge deeper abstract literary concerns with thriller archaeology, with thriller architecture. which every thriller with delusions of grandeur wants to do that, and quite a few abstract literary fiction also want to have some gesture at a plot. Usually both of them fail, but I thought The Need was really good. I would ordinarily say I look forward to reading it again in paperback, but I think it was paperback original in America. I don't know. There's a problem with not going. I need to go to retail bookstores more often than I do. There's only one in Boston. There's only one retail bookstore in Boston. That's a big thing. That's going to have a large buying budget, so that you're going to see a wide selection of everything. There's only just the Barnes & Noble. There are a couple of independent bookstores, but they're heavily curated, usually along ideological lines, so you don't know that you're seeing new releases at all. But at Barnes & Noble, the new releases there's a wide variety of them, and you can go across the river to Cambridge and see the same thing in the Harvard bookstore. I just don't usually do that. But anyway, so Lydia Haas reviews Deborah Levy's book, The Man Who Saw Everything. That book got a lot of press that has been reviewed in a lot of places. I wished that I had liked it more than I did. I just didn't. I just didn't like it as much as I wanted to. Anyway, Susan Peterson does a couple of books on post-war England and on the rise of revanchist Toryism, and also on Margaret Thatcher. And then the thing ends. This issue ends as the first issue of every London Review begins. The first issue of the new year always ends with Wilson Shugart's diary, where he has for the last 170 years been sending extracts from his diary to the London Review so that they can print them, and you just get to read his adventures. What was Wilson up to on the 13th of March in 2019? Getting on my bike to go for the paper this morning, I overbalance, possibly because of an outlying gust from Storm Gareth, and fall heavily in the road. I lie there for a minute or two, and it's Adrian, one of the builders from next door, who picks me up. I haven't broken anything, but it's the third time I've come off in the last 6 months, and it leaves me shaken and bruised. And Alex, from What Page Are You On, shaken too when he comes downstairs. Now I lie on the sofa with my right thigh, or whatever the outside of the thigh is called, sprained. Though pain in one's upper leg is less disabling than pain in the foot or the ankle, which I regularly have. However, sedate though they are, I think my cycling days are numbered. Oh, Wilson, will you never learn? A creature as nearsighted and frail and old as you has long since got to give up bicycle riding to the high street for the paper. There's no element of that sentence that makes any sense in the 21st century. You silly old goose. But anyway, that was the London Review of Books. There are a couple of things here that as I mentioned, that long digression about what I do with my book reviews, I will reread this just to make sure I caught everything, and then I will disassemble it. I will pull it apart. I will pull out the Leonardo da Vinci piece because it's just too well written not to keep, and I'll stick it in a Leonardo da Vinci biography instead of putting it in a file somewhere where I'll never look at it and wouldn't be able to find it in a million years. I'll pull out the Margaret Thatcher book, maybe even the second Margaret Thatcher article. I'll pull those out, I'll trim off the ragged edges, fold them, and then file them in my Margaret Thatcher book. Maybe I'll put the review of the Charles Moore Margaret Thatcher biography in the biography, and the general Thatcher book in her book, The Downing Street Years. Maybe I'll do that, just so that I have them both, so that they're not just rattling around in a file somewhere. But anyway, that brings us to the mail. So we'll do the mail now, and then we will have acquitted my mail for the day. What have we got here? Oh, okay. All right, this is this is the finished copy of The Bomb, Presidents, Generals, and the Secret History of Nuclear War by Fred Kaplan, who I misidentified when I looked at the advance copy for this. Only now it has 1 million blurbs. Good Lord. Just 1 million blurbs. And highlights, a page of highlights. Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist and historian Fred Kaplan takes us to the White House Situation Room, the Joint Chiefs of Staff's tank in the Pentagon, and the vast chambers of U.S. Strategic Command in Omaha to tell the definitive and untold story based on exclusive interviews and previously classified documents of how American presidents and generals have thought about, threatened, broached, and in some cases just barely avoided nuclear war, from the dawn of the atomic era until now. Huh. Well, I've had it. This comes out in late January. I've had it, but I haven't. Okay, I have the book. I don't need the extract. I've had this, but I haven't touched it. I am still vigorously making up ground game for my reading. Haven't got to the bomb yet. Haven't got to the 28th, to the last week of January yet at all. Let's see what this next one is. What on earth? Okay, what is this? Okay, this comes out in the third week of January. It's a trade paperback original. And it's by Olivia Hayfield, and it's called Wife After Wife. Wife After Wife. Everyone remembers the infamous Henry VIII. Not for any outstanding ruling capabilities. He had plenty of them. People don't remember them, but that's not his fault. But because of the preposterous number of women he wedded, bedded, and even beheaded. It's gossip that has withstood the test of time. Never before has his history been as culturally relevant as in today's #MeToo era. Really? Okay. How would Henry VIII be viewed today when treating women as disposable property would never fly? Olivia Hayfield imagines it in Wife After Wife, a scandalous, hilarious, and historically irrelevant modern retelling of the life and marriages of Henry VIII. Okay, how could you do that, though? How could you do that? Oh. Harry Rose, head of media giant Rose Corps. Handsome, charming, intelligent, arrogant. Okay. Women just can't help themselves when it comes to Harry Rose. Set in modern-day London, Hayfield's novel begins in 2018 with a smug Harry Rose looking over his kingdom, pausing only to take a peek through his assistant's sheer blouse. The next chapters return to the 1980s to trace the decades-long journey it takes for Harry to reach the top of the media food chain, including the events that threaten his empire and the many hearts he breaks along the way. 22 years old, married to the kind and benevolent Katie Paragon, and about to inherit his late father's throne as primary shareholder of Rose Corps, Harry Rose's life is perfect. But after falling into bed with a beautiful stranger who brings him lasagna, his title as husband begins to be replaced with others: liar, cheater, adulterer. That first indiscretion leads him on a path of misdeeds and sexcapades across 3 decades, 5 wives, 4 children, and innumerable mistresses. Harry can't help but end up in the arms of another woman, but he can't be irredeemable, can he? As the story comes to a close in 2018, everyone seems to have an opinion about the leader of Rose Corps. After upholding his perfect image for so long, the people finally want to know who is Harry Rose and what happened to all of his wives. Okay. And Olivia Hayfield is the pseudonym for British author Sue Copsey. Any of you know Sue Copsey? She is usually in her office editing other people's books, while Olivia is often in her writing hut at the bottom of the garden. After years in the London Zoo's press office, she became an editor at Dorian Kindersley. She later moved to New Zealand, where she continues to work in publishing. And Wife After Wife is her first adult novel. And she's married with 2 children. And the naughty question of how often she's been married and how many of her children are in line to the throne, we won't ask. But I got to show you this. This book comes with stickers. It comes with stickers of all the various wives of Harry Rose. So Anna Le Bon, which is an anagram for Boleyn, magazine designer, sexy, eloquent, a style icon, ruthlessly ambitious. Anki from Cleveland, Harry's online gaming partner. Her avatar looks nothing like her. Caitlin Howe, who is Catherine Howard. Jim Bunny, wild child, fan of the Kardashians, a stranger to fidelity. Okay. All right. Her avatar looks nothing like her. Okay. All right. Well, we'll see. I'm going to save the stickers, of course, but we'll see how clever the book is. The reason why the gossip has had such a long afterlife with Henry VIII is because of the mortal stakes involved. Because people didn't just end up pensioned off; they ended up dead. And I don't know. I guess are we going to find out that in the modern day that can only happen, and it can't. Are we going to find out that is the big reveal going to be that he killed these people, that he killed two of his previous wives? If so, setting it in 2018 will necessitate a different shape to the story, because Henry could get away with it, and Harry Rose cannot. So, well, we'll see. We'll see. That goes to the head of the line. Her avatar looks nothing like her. Oh my. Okay. Well, we don't segue far from a bloated megalomaniac who has had people killed and who has gone from wife to wife largely to mask his own impotence. We don't stray far from that at all. This is Rick Wilson's Running Against the Devil. This is his follow-up to Everything Trump Touches Dies. This is his new book, which comes out in January. Yes, mid-January. Yep. Donald Trump is exactly the disaster we feared for America. That pub sheet was written before the events of this week, for the news of this week. That was written before then. The disaster takes on a whole new meaning when you're talking about war. Hated by a majority of Americans, Trump's administration is rocked by daily scandals, and he's embarrassed us at home and abroad. He can't win in 2020, right? Wrong. As 2016 proved, Trump can't win, but the Democrats can sure as hell lose. Only one thing can save Trump, and that's a Democratic candidate who runs the race Trump wants them to run, instead of the campaign they must run to win in 2020. In this new book, renowned Republican political strategist Rick Wilson combines decades of national political experience and insight in his take-no-prisoners analysis, hammering Trump's destructive and dangerous first term in a case-by-case takedown of the worst president in history, and describing the terrifying prospect of 4 more years of Trump. Like no one else can, Wilson blows the lid off Trump's 2020 Republican war machine, showing the exact strategy and tactics they'll use against the Democratic nominee, and how the Democrats can avoid the catastrophe waiting for them if they fall into Trump's trap. Okay, well, all the political pundits are saying now that we've passed the new year, all the political pundits are now going on and on about how unbelievably ugly the 2020 presidential race will be. And quite a few of those savants are saying that they see no reason why it won't take the exact same form as the 2016 presidential election did, which is that the frontrunner, the Democratic frontrunner, by far and away the most ecstatically received candidate, the one who packs auditoriums, the one who rakes in the money, the one who has never varied from message, the one who is scandal-free, the one who is doubt-free, will be sabotaged by the Democratic power structure in order to favor a safe centrist candidate who will then lose. In 2016, the front-runner was Bernie Sanders, and the safe consensus candidate, the benefit of rigged superdelegate systems and all that sort of thing, was Hillary Clinton. An unprecedentedly unpopular candidate. And sure enough, she lost. She won the vote by a staggering amount, but it didn't matter because of our antiquated election systems. And in 2020, the system looks set to be exactly the same thing. The front runner will still be Bernie Sanders. Only the uninspired and uninspiring centrist candidate will be Joe Biden. The one the Democratic system will get behind in order to sabotage their own leader. I don't know why that is. I think there's a lot of distrust. Bernie Sanders isn't actually a Democrat, and there's a lot of distrust that we don't know exactly where his loyalties lie, except to his own supporters, and also a lot of pragmatism and people saying, no matter how much he wins by, so what if he wins the Electoral College? So what if he wins a landslide of the popular vote? If he can't get any of his policies put through, then what difference does it make? People have been saying, some of those analysts that I've heard on cable news have said that if they could be sure that the Democrats would take the Senate, then they'd want Bernie Sanders for sure. But if they can't be sure of that, or if they can be sure that they won't, then they want a centrist so they at least have the White House. I don't know. I'm trying not to think about it, so we shall see. Rick Wilson is a very entertaining writer. Everything Trump Touches Dies is a very entertaining book. It has some writing flaws, some writing ticks on his part that I don't like at all, and that could only happen, the only reason that the specific things I'm thinking about could only exist if this guy is just an editor's nightmare. If he just says, look, I'm Rick Wilson, so I'm going to write this exactly the way I want. And if this piece of slang is outdated, makes me sound like somebody's grandfather, if this joke doesn't land or is actually actively confusing, I don't want to hear about it. I know what I'm doing. I got that impression all throughout Everything Trump Touches Dies. So we'll see. I don't imagine, since it was a huge bestseller, I don't imagine it's going to be any different. But still entertaining. Still entertaining to read. It's just a little bit, now that we're in 2020, the actual year of the election, books like this feel a lot more like Fiddling While Rome Burns, and that takes the fun out of them. But I'll certainly read it, so we shall see. And then we'll do this last one here. This last one's nice and heavy. Oh my. Oh, this is much bigger than I thought. Okay. Oh my. Alright, this is much bigger than I thought it would be. Wow. Alright, this comes out in early May. Okay, this comes out in early May. This is Tim McGrath's new big biography of James Monroe. Big fat thing. He was the last founding father to hold the presidency and the last president to never be photographed. He was the only president wounded during the Revolutionary War and the first to live in the White House. In a lifetime that spanned from the War of Independence to the spread of America's power abroad, James Monroe was the living embodiment of a pivotal, defining era when 13 colonies became a loose alliance of 13 states, and with time and steady leadership, one vibrant nation. Acclaimed biographer and historian Tim McGrath brings Monroe and his tumultuous age vividly to life in a major definitive new biography based on a trove of rarely seen primary sources. Big fat biography of James Monroe. Wow. I wonder, every book I've ever read on Monroe, almost every book I've ever read on Monroe, has soft-pedaled one particular subject, one particular aspect of his biography. I wonder if this will do the same. James Monroe is a grand-scale history writing at its best. Born between two worlds, Monroe was the son of a Virginia plantation owner who nevertheless had little money and was forced to work as a common craftsman. Monroe was everywhere in the country's infancy, a senator during the First Congress, the American ambassador to France during the dangerous days of the guillotine, a stalwart friend and confidant of Thomas Jefferson. During Washington's presidency, he helped to foster the bitter partisan rancor that took hold of American politics. He served President Jefferson as the diplomat who negotiated the Louisiana Purchase, doubling the size of the nation after his tireless efforts to haggle with Napoleon's government. And in 1816, he was elected in a landslide and served 2 terms. I'm not seeing the word slavery in there. Plantation, yes, but Well, I'll read the book and find out. So Tim McGrath is a 2-time winner of the Commodore John Barry Book Award. Well, I don't doubt it. Well, let as well as the author of the critically acclaimed biography John Barry, an American hero of the age of sail. What else is the John Barry Book Award going to go to? I thought I remembered him. He wrote a really good book about John Barry, and he won the John Barry Book Award for it. What's he going to win? The Academy Award? And he also wrote Give Me a Fast Ship, The Continental Navy and America's Revolution at Sea, which was also fantastic. I wonder if those are available. I wonder if Dutton puts those out. I'll have to ask and see if those are available. Okay, great. Well, anyway, one way or another, I've read both those books by this author, and they were both fantastic. Okay, well, fine, fantastic. So that ends our mail haul for today. In early May, we get a huge presidential biography. Always in the mood for that. Great, fantastic. So that's two major biographies in 2 mail hauls. We had the Dante book and now James Monroe. Interesting. Wouldn't mind if I got a major biography in every mail haul. So anyway, that is our another huge. Sorry about the length of this thing. We'll get these under control, I promise. This is a big new biography of James Monroe from May. Then Running Against the Devil by Rick Wilson, the follow-up to a hit. He had a hit. Everybody had a Trump book 2 years ago, and his was a hit. Not all of them were. This one containing a strategy. So we shall see in very little time. We shall see how things start to break. The Iowa caucuses are not far away. Voting starts in what's going to feel like an eye blink of time. And then we shall see. And Wife After Wife is our only piece of fiction today, and it's a humdinger. It's a contemporary retelling of the infidelities and inflagrante delictos of Henry VIII in the present day. And then finally, The Bomb by Fred Kaplan, about nuclear war. So mostly nonfiction here. I confess as much as I am entertained by Wife After Wife. This obviously is the clearer front runner for me to get to right away. Wow. All right. Okay, well, that's it. Sorry about the length of the video. That's my mail for today, so I'm gonna wrap this up. But I'll see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.